Good evening. Welcome to Sunday Funday. A little bit of trouble getting things going here, but I think I've got everything up and running. And if you're on, if you're on Yahoo, I don't know where that came from. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, will you please give me a quick hello in the chat? Let me know you're here, and let me know you can hear me and that everything is good. We're going to be continuing our series on Proverbs tonight. We started that a few weeks ago, and we've mentioned before we're going to kind of take a topical view of that because there are a lot of different topics that are touched on in the book of Proverbs. And so tonight we're going to be continuing that with one of the key themes in the book of Proverbs. So we will go ahead and get started here in just a moment. And I think it's just about 6 o'clock now. I got started just a tad bit early because I thought things were not going well, and I went ahead and hit the button, and we're live. So hope everyone's had a wonderful day. Hi, Miss Judy. Thanks for letting me know you're here. Good to see you on this evening. So, all right. Hope we had a great day. Wind's picking up out there, so it sounds like it might be turning cold on us and doing some crazy things. But it was a pretty day yesterday and most of today as well. So hopefully people got to enjoy that a little bit. So, all right, so I'm just making sure Facebook is working here. If you're on all right, here comes the comments. All right, hi Will, hi Katie, thanks for letting me know you're on. All right, so I was getting worried Facebook might not be working there. I see Miss Judy on the YouTube side, now I see Will and Katie on the Facebook side. So we're good to go. We're going to start with a little game and just a word association type of a thing. See how many words you can come up with. Hi Carol, good evening. So see if you can tell me any of these words, any of these things that start with P. Just as many as you can get. If you can come up with 3 or 4 for each one of those, that's fine. But starts with P. See if you can come up with a vegetable, a drink, a place, a movie, a book, a famous person, a girl's name, and then also a term for pretending to be asleep. See if you can come up with that. Excuse me. Yeah, I think I might have a little bit of lag, so I'm going to wait a moment, get some of your answers coming in. Again, I'm looking at my little streaming box, and it's going from red to, I don't know, some kind of orangey color, which doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence that our stream is going really strong here. All right, Carol's got pepper. All right. So here's our first vegetable. Starts with P. Anybody got another one? All right, Pepsi. There's a drink that starts with P. Carol's on a roll tonight. All right. And typing fast, I might add. Good job, Carol. Philadelphia. That's a place that starts with P. All right. Katie's coming in with pumpkin. Is that a drink or a vegetable there, Katie? Which one are you classifying that as? I would have thought pumpkin was technically a fruit, but I guess that's a whole different conversation. And then the whole, what's a fruit, what's a vegetable? Oh, man, I wasn't scrolling fast enough. There's a whole bunch more here. All right, Katie's got pina colada for a drink. Carol's got Parent Trap for a movie. All right, going back a ways on that one. Katie's got Paris for a place. I'm missing some of Miss Judy's over here as well. She's got potatoes for vegetable. All right, good job on that one. Pepsi for drink. All right. Katie says not a drink for sure. You mean you don't have a pumpkin drink and all those different drinks you make? Miss Judy says Panama City. All right, so another place. I'm having trouble keeping up here. Will also said potato. Pinocchio. Will said Pinocchio. Is that a book, a movie, or a famous person? Or all three. Will said pina colada as well. All right. Miss Judy said peanuts. All right. Wow, I got the answers flying in. I'm having trouble keeping up. This is fun. Keep them coming. Haven't seen a whole lot of books yet. other than Pinocchio, which I guess can, like I say, could fall into several categories. Um, let's see, just a few. Let's see, movie. I guess it's along the same lines. So I don't see any girls' names. Oh, Patsy, Miss Judy. Just I was about to say I didn't see any girls' name. Miss Patsy comment popped up that says Miss Patsy. Miss Judy's comment popped up that says Patsy. As y'all can tell, I'm not thinking real clearly tonight for some reason. I'm merging all my words together. But, okay, and then we get Penelope from Katie and Will, almost simultaneously there. So Patsy, Penelope, Penny, all right. Paddington, is that a movie or a book or a famous person, Katie? Or famous, I guess, famous bear in that case. We'll go with movie for that one. Pride and Prejudice. Ooh, a double P on the book there. I'm assuming there's also a movie of that book. Probably. I may be wrong on that, but a double P, like bonus points there for Will. All right. Nobody's got the term for pretending to be asleep yet. I assume this is a southern term, but it might be used throughout the U.S. Phrase, I should say. Prague, okay. Will coming in with another place there. Peter Gabriel, okay, famous person. I believe he's a singer. Correct me if I'm wrong. And Will got it. Playing possum. That was the double P I was looking for on the. Oh, hey, Will and Carol said at the same time. Person pretending to be asleep, playing possum. So I assume that's a southern phrase. I've heard it all my life, but all right. Yep. Katie got Patsy as well. All right, so we got Patsy on the YouTube and the Facebook side. Wow, lots of good answers here. I was afraid this might be difficult with the P because there's really not a lot of vegetables that start with P, at least not that I could come up with. I think you guys have probably touched on most of them. And then I really wasn't thinking of the drink very much. Pepsi was really what came to mind when I first saw it. I figured there were several more, but couldn't think of them right off. So you guys are coming up with a lot of good answers here. Excuse me. All right. So I guess we've got all these covered: books, movies, places, drinks, vegetables, girl's name, and we got playing possum there as well. All right. Well, the reason we were going with the P's there is because tonight's topic, that one of the common themes throughout the book of Proverbs is one of those P words, and it's pride. And pride's one of those words that can have multiple meanings, right? In fact, I started to play a game with that, but I wasn't sure exactly how to get everybody's input on that. But pride can have a lot of different meanings when you use that word. We might sometimes say this, we want to take pride in our work. That's a good use of that's a good type of pride. People definitely should, if you're gonna do something, you should do it right. I think that's what we're taught, and that comes down to taking pride in what you do. I put my name on it, then I want it to reflect who I am. So that's a good type of pride. We also talk about being having pride in who you are sometimes, and that's been translated into just people having pride in life choices and things like that. In fact, if you look up the word pride, if you start searching for things about pride, which I was doing for this as I was getting to it, I came to slowly realize that I guess the term now is primarily used in reference to homosexuality and people being proud of what what they've chosen there. So it has a lot of different meanings. It has meanings. We always talk about pride as someone being proud of their accomplishments. It's not always a bad thing, But sometimes if someone has pride because of things they've done, that can be a bad thing. So it's one of those terms that in and of itself can have different meanings. And so I think as we look at the book of Proverbs here, we'll see that we'll see the type of pride that it's talking about and what it's referring to there. And in the book of Proverbs, it's never referred to in a positive sense. It's never a good type of pride. See if I can get this to move. All right. So the main part of this, I guess the key verse that stood out to me about pride and what the Proverbs has to say about it is exactly what Miss Judy was saying there in her comment. Those on the Facebook side can't see it, but she mentioned pride cometh before the fall, is the old saying. And it is. That's exactly what Proverbs has to say. Proverbs 16, verses 18 and 19 says, pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Better it is to be of a humble spirit with the lowly than to divide the spoil with the proud. And so the Proverbs really warns us about the bad type of pride, the type of pride that says, I'm going to build myself up. I'm going to make myself important. And that's the type of pride that we're talking about here, is that self-importance, that self-absorption, that self-focus. Everything is about me, 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 me. That's the type of pride that Proverbs is looking at. And so we're going to look at several things about that pride, and we'll look at several of the different verses throughout the book of Proverbs that refers to that. But before we do that, I got trivia questions kind of scattered throughout this like I did last time. So quick trivia question before we get into looking at some of the things about pride that Proverbs shares with us. Anybody know what popular vegetable snack was invented by accident in 1853 in Saratoga Springs, New York? We were talking about vegetables a while ago. This is an unrelated question to that, but anybody know what popular vegetable snack was invented by accident of sorts in 1853 in Saratoga Springs, New York? At least this is when many believe it was kind of got its start. I'm sure it was probably done before that, but this is kind of when it got into popular use or was later on made more popular. No guesses? Or maybe I just have a lag and I'm not seeing your guesses. All right. Oh, Miss Judy has it all right. The potato chip. That's correct. The correct answer is potato chip. And the story goes that in 1853, the railroad magnate, Carol said potato chips as well. Good job, Carol. The Commodore Cornelius Vanderbilt, who you would know from the Vanderbilts of the college there in Tennessee, but they were a railroad a family that built a lot of the railroad stuff, and so he was a well-to-do man, Commodore Cornelius Vanderbilt, and he was dining at this fashionable resort in Saratoga Springs, New York, and he had sent his fried potatoes back to the kitchen, complaining they were too thick, and the chef kind of took some affront to that, thought his guest was a bit haughty, and decided he was going to show him. So he sliced these potatoes up paper thin, just as thin as he could get them. He fried them in hot oil, he salted them, and he sent them back out to Commodore Vanderbilt. And to everyone's surprise, Vanderbilt loved these. He called them the Saratoga Crunch Chips. And they eventually started offering those as part of their menu, and potato chips became a little more common and in use at that time. I thought that was kind of funny. So the reason I brought that story in is because the haughtiness there, at least the chef's perception of Vanderbilt there being kind of haughty and pretentious, and that's kind of one of the aspects of pride as well. Is sometimes we can come across as being haughty or looking down on other people, and we'll talk about that as well as we get into it. So we're going to talk about the companions of pride, and before I go into this, you'll see haughtiness as being the first one we're looking at. I wanted to share a piece with you from C.S. Lewis's book, Mere Christianity. And I'm going to read this because I can't remember the exact wording here. But he had an interesting thing to say about pride. He said, "There is no fault which makes a man more unpopular, and no fault which we are more unconscious of in ourselves. And the more we have it in ourselves, the more we dislike it in others." The vice I'm talking about is pride or self-conceit, and the virtue opposite to it is humility. You know, I thought that was so true. There's so many times when pride sneaks in and begins to take root in our life, we're so hard to notice it. That's one reason I don't like talking about it so much, because it's one of those things that I'm easy to fall into and very unlikely to quickly notice on myself. Miss Judy said she was guessing on the potato chips. All right. I guess Carol was too, because she had a question mark at the end of hers. So that was a good guess, though. It's one of those traits that can sneak in on us, and we see it when we know it when we see it in others. We can identify it quickly. When you come across somebody that's haughty or arrogant or prideful, you can see it right away. It just rubs you the wrong way. But so many times, you know, when we're guilty of it ourselves, we don't really notice it that much. And I thought he was very observant to make that point there. And I think that's the reason Proverbs put such an emphasis on it. Not because, just because it's so dangerous, and we'll see that it is, but because it's so easy to sneak in undetected and for us to allow it to grow in our lives. But one of the kind of the companions of pride, one of the ways it manifests itself is in haughtiness. Proverbs 18:12 says, "Before destruction, the heart of a man is haughty, and before honor is humility." So he's saying that, you know, that's one of the things that causes destruction is that haughtiness. Proverbs 21:4, "An high look and a proud heart, and the plowing of the wicked is sin." So he's saying that high look, that proud heart. I also included the Christian Standard Bible version of that verse, because I think it's maybe a little bit easier to understand that part about the plowing of the wicked. It says, "The lamp that guides the wicked." That word plowing is a word that means to make a straight row. That's why they translate it as plowing, because it's an agricultural type term. It means to make a straight row. But that's what it's saying. It's guiding something. And it's saying the lamp that guides the wicked, or what builds that straight row to give them a path, is haughty eyes and an arrogant heart. And he's saying those things are sin. And so those are the things we have to watch out for. That I think it's interesting that it refers to haughty eyes and arrogant heart, meaning the way it affects our outward appearance as well as our inward direction. The next trivia question kind of builds off of that. What part of the face is associated with the origin of the word supercilious? Now, if you don't know what supercilious means, it means a cool or patronizingly haughty demeanor. It means coolly or patronizingly haughty. So if you could say someone is supercilious, you simply mean they're just coming across as extremely haughty. So what part of the face is associated with the origin of that word? Anybody know? Thought it'd be fun to kind of get some vocabulary in there and trivia at the same time. If I have any word lovers in here that have looked at that before might know. Carol says the eyes. All right. I'm sure there's more guesses coming in. I can tell I've got a little bit of a lag still, but very close, Carol. Miss Judy says the eyes as well. All right. Yeah, that's it's pretty close. It's actually the eyebrows. The term supercilious. When you think about someone being arrogant or disdainful, what's one of the things we often do? And I actually caught myself doing it when I was saying the word haughty a while ago. Is we kind of raise the eyebrows. The I'm better than you, raising of the eyebrows, kind of emphasis there. So that's the idea, is that arrogant and disdainful type of people often they use the eyebrows a lot to kind of convey that I'm better than you, or I'm smarter than you, or whatever attitude it is they're trying to convey. And the origin, that supercilious word comes from supercilium, which is the Latin word for eyebrows. And in fact, I think they still call that the supercilium when they're describing birds that have the plume that goes up from their eyes back over their head. We refer to them just as eyebrows, obviously, but that's what the supercilium was. And so supercilious kind of became that from the tendency to, I'm not doing a very good job of raising my eyebrows, making it noticeable there, but that idea of having that haughty look. I thought that was interesting, as that verse we just looked at in Proverbs referred to the haughty eyes and the kind of the look that comes across when we feel like we're better than someone else. And so that's a little bit of a trivia there about the origin of the word supercilious. And you can also use that this week if you want to. It's a good one to try to work into your conversation. Hopefully you don't come across too many haughty people this week, but if you do, you're prepared. All right, companions of pride. Not only is haughtiness one of the things that Proverbs mentions, but scoffing is another one that talks about. Proverbs 21:24 says, "Proud and haughty scorner is his name, who dealeth in proud wrath." You know, those two kind of go hand in hand. Notice it's saying haughty scorner, someone who just kind of, I'm not going to. That's just ridiculous. That's foolishness. And particularly, it's talking about people that do that to instruction from the Lord, the things that the Bible has to say, the things the Bible says are right or wrong. It says, you know, we're not to scoff at those things, and the scoffer is one who is prideful there, and that's a showing of his pridefulness. Another companion of pride mentioned in Proverbs is boasting. This is probably one we're a lot more familiar with. You know, haughty is still kind of a big word. We don't use as much. You might see somebody that comes across and go, wow, they just seem so haughty or whatever. But boasting is definitely a word that we're familiar with. You know, people that like to boast and like to brag. And Proverbs 27 verses 1 and 2 says, "Boast not thyself of tomorrow, for thou knowest not what a day may bring forth. Let another man praise thee, and not thine own mouth, a stranger, and not thine own lips." So he's saying that we don't need to be the ones to boast about what we're doing. You know, so oftentimes people want to share, you know, all their good things, the things they've done, the things that they're good at, because they're afraid others won't notice otherwise. And the Proverbs is saying, you know what? If you have these traits that deserve admiration, deserve praise from other people, they're going to come out from other people. Other people are going to say, hey, do you know so-and-so, they're so good at this? Or did you see what so-and-so did? He says, let other people be the one to praise you and to mention those things, and not yourself. And I think we can all relate to that. We've all heard people that like to talk about their accomplishments, what they do themselves over and over and over. And we don't want to be that person. I mentioned before that these types of things are something that can slip in on us. So we want to watch ourselves and say, you know, how much am I talking about myself versus how much am I listening about other people? How much am I talking about the things other people are doing? Because that gives us a good indication right there. I ought to be sharing the things everyone around me is doing that's good, or their good traits. And so that's what he's saying there. And in the Proverbs 20 verse 6 says, "Most men will proclaim every one his own goodness, but a faithful man who can find?" That's an interesting balance there. Remember I mentioned before that Hebrew poetry was a lot about balance. The first part either contrasting the second part and showing that they're equally different, or the fact that it builds one on the other and that one kind of reinstates the other. Well, this one's showing that difference. And it's saying that, you know, most people are going to spout off about how good they are, but who can find a faithful man? Meaning that if we're faithful, if we're truly being obedient to God, that ought not be our behavior. We ought not be too worried about ourselves and making people realize or think that we're good or we're doing something. It ought to be we're focused on faithfulness. I never thought about faithfulness to God as being an opposite of bragging, but it is. And I think Paul talks a lot about that as well. That his eyes and his focus were on Jesus Christ, not on himself. Not on anything he could brag about or talk about or say he had accomplished, but simply, I'm a sinner and Jesus saved me. Kind of goes hand in hand with what we talked this morning about the Lord's Supper and how we ought to be sharing with everybody. Let me tell you what Jesus has done. You know, if I'm talking so much about what I've done or what I'm good at, then I'm not taking the time to show people what Jesus has done and what he's good at. And that ought to be our focus. And I think that's what Proverbs is getting at there when it says, you know, most people like to boast about themselves, but who can find a faithful man? Who can find one that's true to God? And then, continuing on boasting, Proverbs 17:19 says, "He loveth transgression that loveth strife, and he that exalteth his gate seeketh destruction." That was an interesting phrase there, that he that exalteth his gate seeketh destruction. It's a little bit difficult to understand in our time period because we don't have the same types of challenges they did. But at that time, back then, if you were building a structure you were going to live in, you wanted to make it safe and secure. Maybe it was city walls, or maybe it was a home that you were putting gates around or putting entrances to. what they would generally do is they would build these gates smaller. They wanted small gates. In fact, sometimes some of the writers even said that they would even make them maybe 3 to 4 feet tall in some cases, because that made them harder to get into. You didn't want to have a huge gate that then when the enemy came up, they could just ride right in on their horses or camels or whatever beast they were riding on. You wanted to force them to get off and have to stoop down and go in. And so you wanted to make it difficult for people to enter these gates. But obviously for looks, for pride's reason, you might want to have a huge gate. You want to, look at my building, look at my city, look at my castle. I've got this humongous gate. They're opening for everyone to come in. And he's saying that, we like to make those grand things. At the same time, we're reducing our security. At the same time, we're making this choice based solely on how does this make me look, as opposed to what's the smart thing to do here. That's what he means by he that exalteth his gate seeketh destruction. If you're going to try to, make this big entrance, you're opening yourselves up for attack from the enemy. And the prudent thing would be, in that case, build that smaller gate. It may not look as good. It may not make you look as important. It may not make you look as strong, but it's safer, and it's the more prudent thing to do. And that's what he's saying here, that boasting can cause us to do things that don't make the most sense. And that's true in our everyday life. Sometimes we make bad decisions because we worry more about how will this make me look. We buy something because we want to look a certain way, or we want people to think about us a certain way, as opposed to making decisions based on, what's best for me and for my life and for the things the Lord's given me to do and the things He's given me to do it with. So boasting is another companion of pride. All right, another trivia question here. What herb can be spelled by rearranging the word arrogant? Another synonym there for pride. Miss Judy there's commenting on what we just said. Some people like to boast by what they do to others, but don't realize how it makes others feel. That's so true, Miss Judy. So many times when we're guilty of boasting or bragging, we're not thinking about the other person and how they may feel about that, and what they're going through. And that's another one of the downsides to boasting, is we're totally not caring about the other person. And God has challenged us, especially in the New Testament, to love one another, to put their feelings above ourselves. So very good point. All right, you might know what herb can be spelled by rearranging the word arrogant. Testing your culinary skills here. Bonus points if you used it in a recipe last week. All right, Carol got it. I'm sure there's some others coming in here. Tarragon. And tarragon is the herb that can be spelled by rearranging arrogant. Tarragon, or Artemisia dracunculus, is a perennial herb that comes from the sunflower family. Anybody know that? It's widely used for flavoring, fragrance, and medicinal purposes. And it has a subtle taste and pairs well with dishes like fish, beef, chicken, asparagus, eggs, and soup, which to me sounds like just about everything could use some tarragon. A little bit of extra information there, useless information, or maybe it's not useless, but you can give it a try. But someone once told me that tarragon was their secret recipe when they were making chicken salad. That was what they put in their chicken salad to make it so much better than everyone else's. I personally have not tried it, but I do remember whenever I see the word tarragon, I think, oh, I need to try that next time I'm making chicken salad. So anyway, a good job there, Carol, on coming up with that herb. All right. So not only do we have some companions to pride and haughtiness and boasting, that sort of thing, but if we think about pride and what it is, pride is really against God. It's the ultimate sin against God. Proverbs 3, 5, and 7 says, "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, lean not into thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Be not wise in thine own eyes, fear the Lord, and depart from evil." He's saying there, he's equating fearing God, having that respect for God, the proper view of who God is and who we are, and making sure that we have things in the right order. God is here, I am down here, and we're not confusing those two, is part of focusing on who God is and letting him direct us. We looked at that passage in Proverbs 3 Sunday before last, I believe, and we really talked about how he wants to give us direction. but that comes from us putting ourselves at His feet, us bowing the knee, if you will, to who He is and His place in our life. And so think about that. Pride in itself is kind of the ultimate sin against God. Pride also ignores the principle of wisdom. Throughout the book of Proverbs, we see this idea of wisdom, and it starts with the fear of the Lord. In fact, some people I've seen when they talk about the book of Proverbs or do a study on Proverbs, that's usually the theme they give to the book. That the Proverbs talks over and over that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Proverbs 8:13 says, "The fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride and arrogancy, and the evil way, and the froward mouth do I hate." He's saying that if we're gonna stop pride in our life, we're gonna stop arrogancy, we're gonna keep those things out of our lives, then we have to give God the proper place in our life. We have to let Him be God. And he says we have to learn to hate those things because those are the things that God hates. Proverbs 15:33 says, "The fear of the Lord is the instruction of wisdom, and before honor is humility." There again, that idea of humility being the opposite of pride. And it comes from fearing God, not from so much, oh goodness, what's God going to do to me today, but from a recognition of who God is, the holiness that He has, and the power that He has, and the fact that He shared that to come and to die for us. That's having the proper fear of God, that respect for God and for who He is and for who we are not. Proverbs 22:4, about humility and the fear of the Lord are riches, honor, and life. That really sums up all of this, doesn't it? It's saying humility, if we reject pride and we learn to live a humble life, and we put God in the proper position. I put me in the right place, I put God in the right place. He says that's when He's going to bless us with riches, honor, and life. All those things that pride says it wants, He says we can get by doing the opposite of that. And that's so often how God works, is counter to our wisdom and counter to our thinking. He says, you put yourself aside, then I can really bless you with these things. You put me first, God says, and then I can really bless you with these things. Also talks about how pride is an abomination to God. Proverbs 16:5, "Everyone that is proud in heart is an abomination to the Lord. Though hand join in hand, he shall not be unpunished." God says this is where He shows how much He hates pride, how much He hates that sin that boils up inside of us. He calls it an abomination, and it won't go unpunished. Proverbs 15:33 says, "The fear of the Lord is the instruction of wisdom, before honor is humility." We looked at that verse as well. It's talking about the fact that the humility is the important thing there. Proverbs 6:16-19 gives a list of 6 things that it says that God hates. It says, "Yea, 7 are abomination unto Him." It says here's a list of things that God can't stand. That ought to stand out to us. Okay, if God hates these things, I need to hate these things. And what's the first one? A proud look. Ouch. That's okay, God, let's move on to something a little more easy to hate. Let's come on to something that's a little easier for me to look at and to sting. Let's go with murder or some of those things that I'm not so likely to fall into day by day. And He says, no, we're going to go a proud look, a lying tongue. And then He gets into hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked imagination, someone who's all constantly thinking of schemes, of ways he can do something wrong, feet that be swift in running to mischief, and a false witness that speaketh lies, and he that soweth discord among the brethren. Notice how what we consider those big things, shedding innocent blood, creating mischief, and just always doing something wrong, He sandwiches right in between things that we often kind of brush off as little, those aren't quite so bad. Pride, lying, bearing false witness, spreading lies, sowing discord, just creating contention. Ouch, those are things that are so easy to slip into our lives. When we so did you hear what happened to so-and-so? Did you hear what this person said? We might even be saying something that's true, but we're kind of just putting it out there to kind of create a rumor, to kind of create dissension, to kind of create a battle. And those are the things that can slip in. He says He hates those. And the very first one there, recently to our topic today, a proud look. All right, another trivia question for you. We're getting close to the end here. How many points would you get for the word pride in Scrabble? If you're playing Scrabble, I don't know if we have any Scrabble players among us, but how many points would you get for playing it? I'm asking you to ignore any bonuses, so we're not saying you went on a triple letter or triple word. I know, you get all these different things you can have on the Scrabble board there. But if you simply play the word pride with none of those bonuses, how many points do you get for it in Scrabble? Anybody know? I'm going to wait a little moment to see if I can get some answers here. Guessing I probably still have a little bit of a lag. I don't want to wait too long. But how many points do you think you get in Scrabble for playing the word pride? I actually enjoy playing Scrabble. I don't play it very often, but it is one of those games that I like to play. Miss Judy's guessing 6. All right. Carol says no clue. She's not even going to guess a number. We'll tell you it's between 6 and 12. I'll give you all that much of a hint if you want. All right, I'm not getting any guesses here. So I'm going to go on. I know as soon as I put this up there, somebody's going to come in from somebody. But you get 8 points. And there's the scoring right there. You get 2 points for a D, 1 point for an E, 1 point for an I, 3 points for the P, and 1 point for the R. So you would get 8 points total for playing the word pride. If you happen to play Words with Friends, which I used to play but haven't played in a long time, the mobile app is similar to that. You actually get 9 points for playing pride. I'm not sure exactly what the discrepancy there is, why Words with Friends gives you more points for it. I didn't dig that much into it, but you would get 9 points on Words with Friends, but only 8 if you're playing Scrabble, at least by U.S. rules. So, all right. Last couple things, we're going to look at the consequences of pride. I think most of us know this. You know, these are the things that when we've fallen into pride, it comes back to bite us every time. Shame is one of those. Proverbs 11:2 says, "But when pride cometh, then cometh shame. But with the lowly is wisdom." He says if we allow ourselves to get sucked into thinking how good we are, to thinking we're better than someone else, or to thinking that we can do this on our own, we're going to end up with shame. We're going to end up under that. Proverbs 25:27 says, "It's not good to eat much honey, so for men to search their own glory is not good." Now you may be going, well, what? I love to eat honey. I love to eat a lot of honey. But you kind of get the picture of what he's saying there. How often do we tell children especially, don't eat too much sugar? You know, that's kind of what he's saying here. You know, sugar's a great thing. I love sugar. Eat way too much of it. But that's what he's saying. He says you can't get too much of it. It can be a good thing, but you can have too much of a good thing. He says, and so when we're seeking our own glory, we're not going to get it. It's gonna turn on us, just like eating too much candy. I'm sure we've all been guilty of that at some point, eating a bag of candy or something that's sweet, and what happens later on? You feel miserable. And it was like, yeah, that was a wonderful tasting thing, at least for the first half of the bag, but now an hour later, after I finished it off, I'm not feeling so good. That's what he says. When we seek our own glory, it's never going to feel that good. It's never going to be that satisfying. But yet, you know, you eat a slice of a cake that's really good. You walk away, that was good. You enjoyed it then, and you can enjoy it later and kind of remember how good it was. You don't have that negative aspect of having eaten too much of it. Unless you've done like me, where you went back and got that second, third piece. So we won't go any further than that. But shame is one of the consequences of pride. Contention is another one. Do you find yourself constantly surrounded by conflict and fussing and fighting? You may want to look inward. Make sure that you're not the cause of that. Because Proverbs 13:10 says, "Only by pride cometh contention, but with the well-advised is wisdom." He says that when we fall into pride, we're going to create contention around us. And if you think about it, the times if you've ever known, so like I say, it's easier to see this in others than it is ourselves. So I'll use examples like that. We've all seen people that constantly just stirring up trouble. It usually comes from a place of pride, of wanting to see someone else fail so they feel better about themselves, or wanting to put someone down so they feel better about who they are. You know, I've said this often in our services in different times. I didn't come up with it. I heard another preacher say it, so I don't know who to contribute the quote to, but it's so true. And it's the phrase, hurt people hurt people. And if you think about it, that is so true. And when people are hurting others, when they're lashing out at others, saying things to others, making them feel bad, it usually comes from a place of hurt in their own life. And that's what we have to learn. That's why we have to learn to let God heal us and to take away the hurt that we feel inside, and to learn to live in His love. Because once we can stop hurting inside, we'll stop hurting other people. And when we see ourselves hurting others, lashing out at them, criticizing them, putting them down, all the different things that can be done, those often come from a place of hurt. We have to look back and address that in ourselves. And that's what he's saying, is that when we get filled with pride, when we're focused on us, then we're going to create contention. Proverbs 28:25 says, "He that is of a proud heart stirreth up strife, but he that putteth his trust in the Lord shall be made fat." He says if we're focused on ourselves, we're puffed up about who we are, we're going to create conflict and strife all around us. But when we're not, we're going to be satisfied. God's going to satisfy us. He shall be made fat. He'll be given what he needs to be satisfied. Satiated is another way of putting that. God's going to fill us and give us that satisfaction. So we won't find it in ourselves. We find it in him. Another consequence of pride is destruction. Proverbs 15:25, "The Lord will destroy the house of the proud, but he will establish the border of the widow." Proverbs 18:12, "Before destruction the heart of man is haughty, and before honor is humility." Matthew 23:12, this is a Proverbs, but I thought I wanted to show this to show how the words of Jesus corresponded so much to what Proverbs was saying. Jesus said, "Whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased. He that humbled himself shall be exalted." So that's the fact that pride leads to destruction is what the Proverbs tells us over and over. Jesus even said the same. So that's our P word, pride. How are you doing in that area? Or do we need to examine our lives and pray and set ourselves aside and say, okay, God, help me to focus on you, on what you have for me, to focus on others and learning to look outward more than I'm looking inward? Because the Bible warns us over and over about the dangers of pride and how easy it is to fall into that. So, again, not one of those great topics to talk about, one of those hard things to look at. Some of those things that's so hard to look in the mirror and truly examine our lives, but oh, so important to do so. So I hope you have a great week. I hope you enjoyed this with the trivia stuff mixed in and out. Next week, we're going to look at another theme that's in the book of Proverbs, and we'll just continue with looking through this till we've kind of exhausted a lot of the different things Proverbs covers. But I hope you have a great week. If I can be of any help, don't hesitate to reach out, and I will talk to you then.